guy's got something else. And no sooner does he see the bomber going down, then he also sees his wingman going in 1944. And I'm flying over my own town, and I just see my latest Royal Navy Zero fighter plane in the nose part of the war. So successful in the opening war is because those Japanese naval pilots were just so experienced, so well trained, so brilliant at what they did.
But in the number 2 aircraft there is a Merlin 35, the mark that was pretty much normally fitted to this one.
Skipper in that film as these guys are flying these magnificent aircraft in the next display. So we have flying for us today in the Bearcat, we've got Pete Kinsey. In the Wildcat, Stu Goldspink. And then we have the 3 Corsairs. We have the Fighter Collections Corsair flown by Brian Smith. We have one from France, which is flown by Baptiste Salis, and for the Flying Balls Corsair, it is Eric Goujon.
Not quite so. In fact, yes, now, left-hand side, 5 ship. 3 Corsairs in the middle, as we get ready for the Navy Fighters display.
To put on his solo performance.
red and white. Off-road Vulcan 607, of course, most recently Mosquito, and a big fan of all these planes. And also, you publish.
Discovering it as a teenager back in the 80s. Now, this is the Wildcat we're looking at here, the mark that in British service was a great relief when it entered service to please our because the naval air service was struggling.
Beautiful sounding Pratt & Whitney twin wasp radial engine there.
Producing kills it, shot down Condor over the Bay of Biscay before the...
He was on an escort.
Well, he was on an escort carrier, which the first escort carrier, which was sunk by U-boat shortly afterwards, but he retained the fondness for the Mark for the rest of his life. And his performance, as Tom said, he matched the machines that he was pitted against.
Very manoeuvrable, isn't it?
Very, very manoeuvrable, and like the rest of the guys, and the Hellcat, which is the machine which sat in between the Wildcat and the Bearcat, was responsible for more American kills than any other airplane in the US service. So really close association with naval aviation for decades. Strike. So, although it was quickly
apart from anything else, it was an enormous privilege to actually fly next to a modern fighter. I've never done it, probably never do it again. But running in from the south, we have the trio of F4 Corsairs. So we're staying with the Navy theme. This is the bent wing bird, or whispering death as the Japanese knew it. This is the late Second World War fighter. The dear old Wildcat, which you just previously saw.
Originally, let's just listen to it. Originally, the Corsair, the Royal Navy, the Australian Navy too, and the US Pacific Fleet.
I've got to say, I'm a big fan of the Corsair. I just think it looks good, sounds good, and it's just amazing to see. And I really go with that rule of thumb that if it looks good, it probably is good. I mean, it doesn't always work out, but for the most part it does.
9 times out of 10.
And then they go over the top in a beautiful loop, being led by the yellow-nosed Corsair. That's a slightly earlier Corsair with a 3-blade propeller. That's an aircraft owned by the Fighter Collection from Duxford, flown today by Brian Smith, one of our most experienced warbird pilots, a superb leader. All his formation flying is driven by the lead. Everyone thinks the hard job is the guys on the wing, but in actual fact, the guys on the wing cannot do their job if the leader is not flying smoothly, maintaining the engine of the aircraft.
That's just a classic sight, isn't it? The 3 fighters coming out of the sun. Of course, those gull wings are only that shape so that the wheels could touch the deck and clear the. Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things which is so striking about the speed and innovation that we saw through the late 30s and the early years of the Second World War, was that each company was coming up with its own solution to the aerodynamic and technical challenges involved in achieving high performance. And what Grumman did, consolidated it with this is really fantastic. So
the aircraft tended to bounce over the arrestor wires, and in those days they didn't have angled decks on the carriers, they were straight deck, so if you missed the arrestor wires you went into a barrier halfway down the deck and they had to extricate you from it. Where he needs it. So the aircraft was designed in 43-44 to actually take over from the Hellcat, and the problem in 1944 was the kamikaze aircraft in the Western Pacific, and what they needed was an aircraft that could get airborne off the carrier, suck its gear up, stay at full power, point the nose up and climb at least 4,000 to 5,000 feet a minute to intercept the kamikaze aircraft coming in and taking out the US Navy ships. And that's exactly what they managed to do with the Bearcat. They took exactly the same engine as fitted to the Hellcat and the Corsair, that same
straight level, which is, that's jet speed. That's talking to, I mean, as I say, this is the Sea Fury when it flew in a pod. And talking to the Sea Fury pilot who said, flying these things is really like flying the jets in terms of the performance that you have on tap. Here it comes.
Time to launch, they say. It makes 10,000 feet in probably less than 2 minutes. And Pete is demonstrating that capability right now. He's probably actually only using continuous military power.
I was about to say he's almost flying that like a modern day competition aerobatic aircraft.
Indeed, actually with a very short wingspan it means that the aircraft rolls very quickly. Pete's got a long track record of winning aerobatic competitions. Back in the 60s and 70s I hasten to add, but Pete wouldn't want me to say that. But he takes all of those aerobatic capabilities and in the aircraft of this capability, incomparable I would say.
First generation of Gemini and Mercury astronauts, those Navy pilots who led the space race, they would have learned to fly on machines like the Bearcat. But Winslow Brown, I know, flew Bearcats alongside some of those early astronauts when he was on exchange in the United States at Patuxent River. Another favourite.
They didn't want to get rid of it. Why would you? You do something now, really.
Anything we do.
Yes. Dust down the Harriers, Bearcats. Maybe some.
Well, you laugh, but
maybe some English lettering lights as well.
quickly than their contemporary jets, so they had a real value in those transitional years, even as the jets began to make their mark. And you can see why it was sort of sparkling performance on display here.
Who was a fighter pilot in 32 squadron.
In the same position, but this time following the lovely silver P-48 A1. As it was in front, you can see that wonderful building design. But we're the training command throughout the world. In fact, the very first overspear team the US Navy put together, the Blue Angels, which are on the newest now to their final F8F in the States. What they waited for is a top team, the Yellow Nose Corsairs. Super job with those Corsairs, Brian. In the case of a carrier aircraft, to assist the pilot, there would be a landing signal officer on the back of the carrier. He'd be a qualified pilot, he'd be a qualified carrier landing pilot, and he had a set of paddles, certainly in World War II, a set of bats, tennis bats effectively, and he'd stand on the back of the carrier, and as the pilot flew his curving approach to the back of the carrier, the LSO would give him hints as to whether he was fast or slow, high, left, right, by wagging his legs and his hands around. But the pilot would have to fly that curving approach, otherwise he'd lose sight of the landing signal officer. And the idea being he actually rounds out around about 6 feet above the deck, and at that point, if the landing signal officer is happy with his approach, he would then cross his backs over his head, and in an absolute massive act of confidence, the pilot would then simply close the throttle, pull the stick back, and the aircraft would bounce onto the carrier deck. Anyway, that's the Bearcat. You'll see Pete taxiing in a little bit. But just airborne now is the T-45 with the steerman. First flew in the late 1930s, and they built literally thousands of them. It's just as well because this is great having them as well. Much stronger than the old Hazmat. And they had crop dusting tanks put in the back, and they dusted the fields in the United States for about 20 years until they actually designed some specialist aircraft.